why should you care about mind KPIs? Mind KPIs, key performance indicators, are ways to measure, track, and also baseline the performance of your mind. So you may be used to basically measuring business or product related KPIs on a daily basis. So the whole idea of measuring performance should not come as a surprise or like a strange thing. It's basically knowing what you're doing. There is this general practice in tech, right? Build, measure, learn, agile, right? Agile manner. So there is ways to also as a scientist, right? You learn how to create baselines, solid baselines, and that is sometimes not that easy. It requires some, can be quite tricky. And then over time, and the data quality gets better, you do some interventions, some new product features, whatever it is. Usually there is some A/B testing involved, and then you keep measuring. And this is how you learn, how things even get better or maybe not better. And so the same thing applies to the mind. How do you know how well your mind is doing? Right? So you think, so maybe you already feel some of the symptoms of what I call the monkey mind, or the busy mind, the worrying mind, all those different instances of what the mind can do to you if it's not trained in an optimal state. It can actually become your greatest liability. And so, but how do you know how severe is it? It could be, for instance, that you have a lot of thought activity. Sometimes, so there's a lot of thinking. You're thinking about the past, the future. It's always going on. It's always there. And it could be then in the evening you come home and there's still thinking activity going on. The mind is not turning off. So is it a good thing to have this kind of thinking activity going on? Probably not. And so at some point you have enough of it. It can be very entertaining at some point, but usually you want a calm state of mind, and at the end of the day, thoughts, many of them is just noise and it's a waste of energy. And so you can immediately see that having not too many thoughts, but having them when you need, for instance, a particular thought, let's say for problem solving, then it could be desirable. But then the question again is, how do you know what's going on? And so this is where mind KPIs come in. And so one of the KPIs is actually tracking the average number of your thoughts per minute, TPM, thoughts per minute. So you learn this is a very important KPI, and I'll talk about this usually in my tech meetups, and there is one coming up. I usually do them once a month. And mind KPIs is a topic, I think it's like the really fundamental thing where you start actually focusing on and exploring your own mind and learning what its performance is. So thoughts per minute, how much noise, right, is going on, is a very interesting indicator. And when I start working with people, tech leaders, business professionals, executives, that noise level is quite high. So the TPM, the thoughts per minute, is quite high. There's other ways to also look at the performance of the mind. One of them is a classic one. I often talk about it, a mindful minute. It's a minute where you're really focused and present. You're basically being here, being there in the current moment, in the present moment. And mindful minutes, a simple example, let's say you sit in a meeting and for 1 minute you're fully listening, actively listening to the other participant, really understanding what's going on, not thinking about already how you want to reply, but just being there, being present for 1 minute is a mindful minute. So it's also a proxy for your level of present awareness, your LPA. And the LPA is defined basically the number of mindful minutes that you accumulate over the course of a day. So the more mindful, the more present you are, the higher your level of present awareness. So you can already sense that having a high LPA can be quite helpful, but unfortunately, if the mind is not trained, that number can be quite low, and usually when people have never started doing anything in the area of, let's say, mindfulness, making it an effort to be present, then usually an LPA is about 1 or 2%. That's my experience. It could be more, but usually that's what it is. But again, you can measure it. So we have another mind KPI, even 2 mind KPIs, mindful minutes, and then the LPA level of present awareness is then derived from those mindful minutes. And there's another one which is a little bit more advanced. I'll give you a hint, right, so that you can see there are ways to actually measure and track your mind performance. And the other one I want to briefly point out is the number of conscious recoveries per day. So what are conscious recoveries? Well, every time you drift away in your busy mind and get sucked into all this thought activity, you're basically lost. You're lost in thoughts, literally. And you identify with these thoughts, you're not present anymore. But when you start working on training your awareness and your LPA is rising, there are these sudden moments you'll actually realize that, oh wait, what was I thinking? So you get this aha effect, right? Oh, what was this? And then you realize, oh, there's this thought stuff currently going on. Ah, interesting. So you became aware of the thought activity, and once you become aware of the thought activity, you're actually present. You were present to discover there's thought activity, so this is called conscious recovery. And conscious recoveries, you can train them as well, and I'll teach you how in this upcoming meeting where we talk about these mind KPIs, so that you get a flavor that there are actually ways to measure your mind's performance. And you can already guess that the number of conscious recoveries, the higher the better. So let me summarize. There is ways to track the performance of your mind. There's many of these KPIs that I investigated and explored over the past 10 years. A few important ones I shared today. So the number of thoughts per minute, TPMs, mindful minutes, your level of present awareness, and the number of your daily conscious recoveries. So those are very important ones. And if you understand how they work, if you learn how you can track them, and then actually keeping track of them by building a solid baseline at the beginning, and this is something you typically do over a few weeks, and then you can see how those things are evolving. That is the interesting part, and what kind of activities you do. Let's say you practice some meditation, you do it on a regular basis, you may notice that some of these KPIs are now being impacted. So this is the cool thing. So I encourage you to basically learn more about mind KPIs. Join me in this upcoming meeting, tech leader meeting, where we discuss this in more detail. I'll share an overview of it, give a few examples, and then of course I'm around for questions and answers to help you get started. I think once you get a hang of this, how to actually measure mind performance, then you actually realize that, oh wow, this is just another way I can track something and see what it's doing. And this is build, measure, learn. So now instead of applying it to your projects, to your products, to your business, you apply it to your mind. And of course the same thing can be done for your body. That's usually called biomarkers that you can track there as well. That is a subject for probably another tech leader meetup. But for now, mind KPIs, I hope this got you excited and give you a flavor a little bit of what it is. And so I encourage you to join the meetup.